Hi, everybody. My name is Zeb Welborn, President and CEO of the Chino Valley Chamber of Commerce. Today, I'm here with Molly Alves from the Santa Maria Chamber of Commerce. We're going to go over a few things, but one of the main things we're going to go over is standard operating procedures and how she implements those in her organization. And then we're going to talk about maybe some committee restructuring that they're doing. So with that, Molly, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Zeb.
Good. So let's get into the SOP stuff. So I sent out an all-call thing to our chamber colleagues, and I had some recommendations to reach out to you because you guys are working on this right now. So tell me what you guys are doing at the Santa Maria Chamber.
Yeah, I think I would say, relatively early on in the process of developing standard operating procedures for our organization. I took my role as Vice President of Operations and Membership about a year ago or so. And I think the intention for us is to really build some of those foundational elements that, I think chambers as a whole get guilty of getting so deep into the work we do as organizations, we don't pull back and actually work on the business. And a big goal of our organization over the next few years is to spend a little more time working on the strategic elements of the business. And a big part of that is the standard operating procedures, right? I think we've had a lot of staff with us for a long time. And so those procedures of how to do things have just been kind of passed along person to person. There wasn't a lot of written documentation. And so we had a, change in CEO leadership about a year ago, and our new CEO, Michael, when he came on board, one of the first things he asked was like, "Oh, like where are all your SOPs?" And we all kind of looked at each other and laughed and like, "Oh, they're right here, like I can tell you how to do things." And he was pretty surprised. It was funny. He doesn't, his background, he's been on our board for the chamber, a number of other chamber boards, but his professional background is more, on the business side of things. So having that background come in to manage our chamber and have us kind of recognize the importance of those foundational elements like SOPs has been really helpful actually for us. And so, I think he's given us some templates to use, and I've really taken the role of overseeing our leadership team and how can we kind of develop these processes, procedures over, time so it's not overwhelming. Everything from how we run our major events to how we operate our committees to written policies around, when do we comp tickets for major events, right? Like having written documentation of all of those things.
Awesome. Okay, so you've recognized the need. You started doing this. So walk me through how did this actually get started where you're actually documenting or putting stuff down on paper?
Yeah, so really started with a brainstorm of kind of as an organization, what are all the processes and procedures we have, right? Membership, marketing, events, administration, finance, HR, all of those things, and kind of categorizing them out and writing down those, all the major events, all the committees, and then from there, really delegating out who oversees that process and who should be responsible for developing that SOP based on the templates that we created for those things. And then from there, just kind of setting deadlines of, how can we, every month try to complete a few of these to get ourselves as an organization, get all these documentations built up over the next year.
Okay, and then you said you have templates. So what do those templates look like and how does that help in the process?
Yeah, so I mean, it's pretty basic. I mean, we use Google Workspace, and so it's just, a Google Doc that is the template of the SOP. And so it's really, kind of date it's created, what the SOP is for, what the scope of it is, who does what. So what are the responsibilities of each person in relation to that process? And then step by step, what that procedure actually looks like. There are sometimes links to supplemental documentation that's needed. Like for our mixers, we have a checklist of what to bring every month, and so that is linked in the SOP. Um, those sort of things.
Okay. And then you mentioned you have it like tagged for people. Is it by role or is it like their name?
So it's by role. Yeah, we don't just, and for the sake of if there's turnover and stuff, it's really like, the marketing lead, vice president of marketing is responsible for these things, vice president of operations is responsible for these things. Um,
And then you mentioned that the templates that you have, and this is more me getting in the weeds on it a little bit, but is it all in one document or is it all, it sounds like there's a whole bunch of different documents you're creating based off of the template for whatever the SOP is. And there's a whole bunch of different ones. And then are you consolidating that into one place or is it just kind of, here's the SOP for this and here's the SOP for this?
yeah, no, good question. So they're all organized within our Google Drive. We have a folder that's for standard operating procedures, and then they're categorized into major categories like events, membership, finance, HR, marketing, communications, tourism, because we run our tourism and our economic development. And then from there, they're saved in the appropriate folders. And we use Monday.com for kind of project management. And so we've used that platform to delegate out and kind of time frame out when we're creating all these SOPs and who's doing them and when they're expected to be done by.
All right. Then you said you're kind of going into the process on this. So let's say you're looking, how far along are we in this process? When did you start it and how's it going?
We actually, it's funny, we just had a check-in call with our leadership team the other week because I think we get busy and we pull back, we get in the weeds of working on things. And so reprioritizing some time every week to kind of focus on getting these created. And I think as we're going through the process, I know I'm seeing the benefit of having written documentation. Even just the process of creating these, we've seen how we can streamline certain processes more. And I think from also just a staff accountability perspective, like having written documentation of who's actually responsible for what has been really helpful for our team to understand. And, when we go through like a process for marketing an event and there's a pause or a stop in the process, we can figure out, okay, do we need to rework how we're doing things so that we don't have these issues next time around? And so we're seeing the benefits, and I think that's helping with motivating our team to get more of this, documentation in place because it can be a real challenge to set aside time to work on things like this when there's a million other things we're doing as a chamber, right?
Yeah, so because we're doing the same thing, right? We're doing something very similar. Actually, I probably had this on my to-do list for maybe I think after the first year of running the chamber where and we're slowly like picking away at it and we're slowly getting better at it. But I want to know like a time frame on like the actual time frame, right? So when did you start this process of saying, okay, we're gonna put together SOPs as soon as your CEO came on board?
It was maybe a few months after. I mean, I think when he came on board, it was this is a priority for the organization. We need some written documentation on how everything works. And then we began doing that, maybe a few months later. So we're probably like 10 to 12 months in. And we've certainly made progress on figuring out the breadth of SOPs that need to be created
Yeah.
and who should be doing those. The actual creation of them, we're getting there, right? I'd say we've created maybe 10 or 15 or so far of like, the God knows how many that we have to make. But
Yeah.
the more we do it too, I think the easier it becomes. And, certain members of our team, like our events person finds it's easiest for her to do it as she's actually planning the event. She'll create the SOP for that event or right after she does it. So it's fresh in her mind on how that process actually works. So, I think our hope is that by the end of the fiscal year, so by end of next June, we'll have all the ones we thought of done. And I think we will make that deadline. I'm confident.
All right. So you said there's 10 to 15 of those and you're X number of months in. So and you're gonna finish them by the end of June. So how many as a chamber do you feel like you do have?
There's probably at least 30 to 40
Okay. So you're a little,
left to do.
you're almost halfway there.
Yeah, like a quarter of the way there. So
Cool. Yeah, and that's one of those things where I feel like because when we started this process, like I have the intention of like let's write this all down, let's get everything documented, and then we do it, and then we get busy with stuff, and then maybe 3 months go by, and then it's like, all right, we need to go back to this, and then we do it, and we have another round of things. Or are you very consistently doing it like week after week where you're actually implementing and doing it?
No, I think we're kind of like you guys. It's we we try to refocus on it, we get some done. I think setting the deadlines, which we just kind of recently made that a new priority to like, okay, we put them all in the project management platform, but there are no deadlines set. So going in and actually setting those deadlines, I think is helpful too, from just a time management perspective. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough to find the time to work on the business.
All right, and then you said like your tools right now, it's basically like the Google Workspace thing. You have the Google Drive, you're doing that. Is there anything, and then you mentioned Monday.com will help with the project management of it, just like giving deadlines, doing things like that. Is there any other thing that you're using that you feel like has been helpful or that would be helpful for somebody else?
Well, AI, so we definitely utilize Gemini to help refine some of the process, or we'll put in a template and we'll put some prompts in about this is what the process looks like. Just kind of spit out stream of conscious and have it help format it into that template. So, that helps expedite the creation of these for sure. So yeah.
Yeah, good. Okay, and then you have other folks that are interested in doing SOPs for their organization. What's a piece of advice that you would give to somebody if they were going to start doing this for their chamber?
I think I'd say start small, like get a few done, and make sure as an organization they all understand the why and the need for these. So everyone's kind of on board with understanding the importance of having that sort of documentation for the organization and the long-term benefits of it. I think that might have been where we misstepped initially. It was like, we need to get all this done, and that we didn't really fully explain to the whole team the why. And now that we've done a better job of that, I think people are more engaged in the process and they're more willing to spend the time working on things that will really benefit us from an efficiency standpoint. And, as we have staff turnover and new staff coming in, the training standpoint, time savings and everything like that, the benefits of it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then how about working with your team? Like it sounds like you're assigning different people to run SOPs. I think when we're putting them together, I'm putting them together. I feel like I want to take the lead on that and have it put in together like what it is, and then have my team review it. I also kind of want it to be a little bit of back and forth, right? Like there's some where I want to say, okay, what does this process look like for you? Put it down for me, and then I'll review that, and then we'll spit it back out, and then we'll see how that goes. Like, I guess, how are you kind of finalizing those? Is it bottom up? Is it top down? Is it a little combo? How does that work for you?
I think it's based on who really owns that process or that program or that area of the organization, and empowering them to at least do the first draft of this is how I see the process is or how the process should be. And then, myself or someone else from our leadership team would work with them to make sure it's what we all agree that process should look like.
Okay, cool. And then do you have is this all staff centric, or do you have any of your volunteers, like your board, your other folks members? Is there any involvement from those in your SOPs?
No, it's really just staff. Yeah, because I think most of what they all entail is staff driven. I think, there are some things like that are related to the board, some of that documentation and things we're developing, we'll get our exec committee to weigh in on. We're working on, redeveloping our like conflict of interest form, confidentiality forms, those sort of things for our board. And so getting some feedback from them on those. But I would say, yeah, 90% of it is staff.
Excellent. And then, so we were talking earlier about some other areas of expertise. So I wanted to chat mostly about SOPs, but also if there's anything that we can share that you feel like you're an expert in to do well in chamber work and educate our fellow chamber colleagues on. So we were talking about like kind of setting up committees, right? Or like restructuring how you guys are doing your committee work. So what's kind of the new innovative thing that you're doing when it comes to restructuring your committees?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I wouldn't call it necessarily innovative, but I think being more strategic about it, right? And so, like many chambers, we have a number of different committees, our ambassador committee, we have a business government roundtable, we have a Hispanic Business Alliance, and so we have a committee that oversees that program of work. Military Affairs Committee, because we have the Space Force base nearby here in our community. And so this past year, we really looked at a few of those committees, like our military affairs committee had kind of fizzled out, and Business Government Roundtable kind of lacked the focus. And so we really re-examined what we're utilizing these committees for and how could they be restructured to make sure we're adding value to the participants. And also kind of using it as a feeder from the community to then to the board. And so our board can have some more conversation about issues that the community is seeing or areas we need to take positions on, and really engaging our leadership more in some of those issues and those various different topics. And so this past year, we restructured our Business Government Roundtable and our Military Affairs Committee primarily, and our Ambassador Committee a little bit to more of an application process. And so people had to apply. It's a year-long commitment. They can reapply if they want to continue on that committee. But just to add a little more, I guess, legitimacy, and buy-in from people that this is a commitment and you're expected to be at these meetings, structuring them in a way where there's different speakers on different kind of policy or topics or current timely information, and then getting feedback from committee members. We have a board member that serves on each committee, and then that board member takes that to the board. And so if there's areas that like we need to take a policy position or this is a concern from our ambassadors they're seeing from membership, that we can discuss those things at a board level.
Well, and then just out of curiosity, your committees, they're all volunteer, right? So when you're asking
Mhm.
for those commitments, it's just a commitment of time and not resources.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's cool. And then Molly, I want to say that you and I, we graduated from the academy together. We spent a lot
Did.
of time, and it's one of the things that I greatly appreciate in our industry is getting to know people like you who are just committed and dedicated to doing good work in their communities. And not only do you do that in your own community, but you do that in the chamber industry too. So I just want to say it's been a pleasure working with you and getting to know you and working on this chamber stuff together.
Yeah, thank you, Zeb. Likewise. Yeah. And you guys are doing impressive things over in Chino Valley. So we're always stalking you guys online too to get some new ideas and stuff. So we always appreciate the partnership.
Well, cool. We try to do that. We got a lot more fun, exciting things coming up in the near future. So pay attention to those too. Is there anything else you feel like anything else we should chat about today?
No, I don't think so. I think, operationally, those are the big things that we're working on right now. But I'm always curious to hear from other chambers what they're doing as far as operations, SOPs, happy to share resources as well. So,
Yeah, speaking of that, do you know of any other chambers or chamber insiders that you feel like would have a good grasp on this kind of stuff? Like, did you guys consult with any other of our chamber colleagues on standard operating procedures or anything like that?
not as much on the SOPs, but on the committee restructuring, we really kind of pulled inspiration from the San Luis Obispo Chamber.
Mhm.
Our neighbors, our neighboring chamber there, they have a really solid, especially their kind of government affairs committee. They've really developed that into a powerful committee, and so we pulled inspiration from them for sure.
Awesome. Well, Molly, thank you so much. As I mentioned before, it's been a pleasure and looking forward to seeing you at the upcoming WAC event soon.
Yes, likewise. Thanks, Seb.